Hello, my name is Jenny Keogh and welcome to this podcast brought to you by Film Ireland in partnership with Still Voices Short Film Festival. We're delighted today to talk to 3 documentary filmmakers whose brilliant films are screening at the festival. The Still Voices Short Film Festival takes place from the 4th to the 7th of November. Hi everyone, and thanks a million for joining us today on this podcast for Still Voices. We have Tom Dream and Alex and Kaitlyn here with their 2 films, Snowy and Shy Radicals. Welcome here to the podcast today.
Hi Jenny, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
So excited to be here.
You're all very welcome to this podcast, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to you about your short documentary films. So to get us going, it would be brilliant for our listeners if you could introduce yourselves, where you're based, and give us a small synopsis of what your film is about. And I'm going to start with you, Tom. If you could kick it off for us, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, my name's Tom Dream. I'm a director of documentaries and music videos based in Margate in Kent in the UK. And my film is a short documentary called Shy Radicals, which I completed last year. It was funded by the BFI Doc Society. It was the first short documentary I've directed, apart from a 6-minute short I did the previous year, but that was more of a live music piece. So it was the first real sort of short documentary I've made. The film is a portrait of an artist and activist called Hanja Hassan, and it looks into the book Shy Radicals that he wrote, which is a satirical political manifesto, which imagines a nation state for quiet, shy and autistic spectrum peoples called Aspergistan. And the whole idea is he's created this nation state and this idea to overthrow extrovert supremacy. And it looks into sort of some of the reasons why he wrote the book, and his creative process in making the book and creating this place. And it was incredible to make, and I'm really happy that it's being shared in Ireland at this festival.
But the fact that we're still singing this song makes me feel like the world's not a better place. And I thought, like, if we all got together or we performed some sort of movement together, we could make the world a better place and use that song to connect all of us.
And that's something that I really resonate with. That's a goal and a project that I'd really want to be part of.
You should join the Shy Resistance movement then.
I'd love to.
I want you to know.
Brilliant, Tom. Thanks for that. And we will delve deeper as we go through the interview about your film. And I'd like you to do the same if you can, Alex and Kaitlyn.
My name is Kaitlyn Schwalje. I'm the co-director and writer of the short documentary Snowy. I am a film director and science journalist.
My name is Alex Wolf-Lewis. I'm the co-director and cinematographer of the short documentary Snowy. And I'm a cinematographer and documentary director.
And we're based in Portland, Maine.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the
right.
Hills about?
The why we're here. Snowy is a short comedic documentary about my uncle's pet turtle that's been living in his basement in a sad tank for 25 years. And so year after year, we would go there for Thanksgiving to celebrate. And I'm always wondering how the hell this turtle is alive and wondering, or surely it can't be happy. And so this film was kind of an investigation into whether or not Snowy was happy.
And what can be done to potentially improve the situation.
He's not really happy with where he is. He kind of feels like he lives in inferior housing. And it is kind of a prison. It does make him really feel inadequate and sad.
Snowy is our family's pet turtle. He lives in the corner of our basement. If there's anyone to feel guilty, it's you, Will.
Yeah, you're a horrible person.
Brilliant. And like I said, looking forward to getting into that, into more detail as well. And I think what having watched the films, although they're all really, really unique and very different in subject matter, the one thing that stood out to me was kind of the idea of people coming together for a needy cause, you know, to actually, you know, strength in unity, strength in community, and coming together to solve a problem for someone else in need. And as much as like the films are very different in subject matter, one being, you know, about a turtle as such, and Tom, yours being about, you know, the introverts, the plight of the introverts in the world, there's still an end goal at the end of it and a needy cause. And and they so similar and very, very touching to watch both of them. And I suppose what I'd like to ask all of you as well is, when it came to making the film itself, like as a documentary filmmaker, there's like there can be an idea every day or every week that could come into your head, or you come across a story or a person or a subject, and you're like, oh, I'll make a film about that. So what was it about this particular subject matter that made you see it through, and what compelled you to actually make the film? Tom, I'll go with you, please.
Sure. I stumbled across Hamja's book, Shy Radicals, in a bookstore for introverts where I live in Margate, and it's a very quiet bookshop with just one wall. There's only about 20 titles, 20 books in the store, and something about it just appealed to me immediately, and I couldn't tell if it was like a serious book or not. It's, you know, it was like hilariously funny, but then at the same time I could sense that there was some deeper meaning behind all of the ideas within all of, and there were incredibly visual ideas that Hamja had created in this short text, and the way it was written like a political manifesto, but then it also felt, there was something about it which just really appealed to me, and I just had to find out more about the author. And so I found him on Instagram. We arranged to meet up. It turned out he lived in South London, quite close to where I grew up. So we arranged to meet, and immediately we just got on, and we had a great conversation and decided that we wanted to work together on something inspired by this book. So it was really that conversation which inspired us to go on and create the film. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. No, it does, because I'm always curious about stuff like this as to how directors and subject matters meet, and how does that happen. You know, there's so many films where like the subject themselves have discovered the director, you know, and decides to collaborate, or it can be the other way around, which is what has happened in your case, Tom. And I suppose what's a bonus in with your film as well is that the subject matter is so vast. You almost had like two parts to the document. There's two stories aligned in the documentary. And like when you initially discovered the book and him, did you realize the second, without giving too much away, did you realize the second part of that story existed, or?
No, I didn't have any clue about Hamja's background whatsoever, actually. I did an initial bit of research into him and discovered that he'd worked in activism, but I didn't know specifically why. And that all emerged in that first meeting. He described how his brother had been wrongfully accused and arrested on anti-terrorism charges and had been detained for the longest period in British history. And he had then led the campaign to free his brother, prevent him from being extradited to the United States, all the while being a introverted person and identifying as a shy, quiet, introverted person. The contrast between, you know, having that sense of character and personality, but doing something as brave as leading a campaign to free someone against the, you know, institutions of both the UK and America. This like the biggest powers you can imagine. Just really, I found incredibly inspiring, and the way he did it, using his creativity to go about. I mean, the campaign, just to briefly touch upon it, was based around publishing his brother's poetry that he was writing in solitary confinement. And he was nominated for a human rights award for the creativity in his campaign. So, and the book was a sort of result of that. It was a reaction to his experiences. That's how and now he's touring with the book, and he's using it as a vehicle to talk about these much deeper issues. So yeah, that's what, there's so much there to unpack and discuss.
There really is. That's why, and you squeeze, what I love about it is, into your film is about 22 minutes long, isn't it? Yeah, so
that's right.
Like you squeeze so much into those 22 minutes, and there's almost parts where it's almost like a docudrama style that comes about, crossed with a beautiful music video, and it's. I was just wondering when I was watching it, when it came to the edit, or when it came to the process itself, did you have all those ideas in your mind to begin with, or did they develop throughout filming, or what happened there?
I think I didn't really know what I was doing. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I learned very much on the job with a director called Julian Temple that I've assisted and worked in the camera department for the last 10 years. And the way he works is quite unusual too. I don't think I've had very traditional education in film, but it's lots of, I suppose you call them vignettes or scenes that are literally pulled from the book, these fictional scenarios that I really wanted to recreate visually, just to give a sense of what the book contains, and then interweave that with more traditional documentary aspects. I thought it would be a fun thing to try. It was very difficult to edit as a result, but I was wondering about that. What did you? Because what was there much on the editing floor? Did you have to really be kind of ruthless in your editing, or did you have a lot of scope there? There's probably 4 other films there to make, and we actually made another 15-minute film based on one conversation that wasn't included in the film but was so interesting. We just basically created a film out of that, totally unedited, to a soundtrack that a friend composed. So it was difficult. I learned a lot from the process, and I think I was so excited by having the BFI Doc Society support me as a director, a new director. I really overshot, and probably I say I won't do that again, but I'm literally doing it again now with the film I'm making. But it's a very exciting process to work with someone who you find an inspiring artist. It's difficult to know when to stop shooting and when you've got enough, but and sometimes enough is never enough, because you're so excited in the moment as well, and the whole experience is so thrilling, and there's an adrenaline there. But to find out more information, get more footage, like you say, you could have 4 films within the one film you've made. So absolutely. I'm not surprised you've moved on to do another aspect. Be looking forward to seeing that whenever you develop that one. Thank you.
I'm just going to move on now to Alex and Kaitlyn, and kind of ask you as well in relation to your film. I know that it was filmed in your uncle's and cousin's home, right? And it's about this turtle who's been what you believe to be kind of abandoned in the basement, and you're like that. You're going to save him and bring him a new life as such. But I was wondering about that as well. What actually then made you to write, I'm going to make the film? I know that you, Alex, you've had a bit of background in cinematography for Well Groomed and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, was there any connection there with animals, or did it start out as an innocent family project, or how did it all come about?
I'd say it wasn't innocent. We were out to get my uncle. We wanted to hold him accountable for his years of, it was kind of like I was saying before, just this idea that was in my head. I'm like, I think I'm very attracted to comedies. I love American Movie. It's one of our favorite films. We love The Office. So that I think deep down we knew that there was some kind of element here that would lend itself to a documentary and kind of taking a comedic angle on it. But it wasn't until I brought this idea to Kaitlyn, because she has writing chops, research, sort of more experience in that world of bringing a story together. And she's like, no, there really is a documentary here. And I was just so nervous to make sort of a investigative documentary about my family. You can't see that on the podcast. I made air quotes because it's, well, you'll see the film and
Alex kind of kept nagging at me, there's this turtle in the basement, we've got to make a film. And I'm like, what the hell is this film about? I don't understand. And then I finally did meet Snowy, and I was like, okay, well, if we're going to make a story about it, we have to have some sort of outside perspective on it, because, you can only roll around the idea of turtle happiness for so long where nobody has any information whatsoever. So I was in touch with this woman named Dr. Irene Pepperberg. She's famous. She's a Harvard animal researcher, famous for teaching this parrot named Alex how to talk.
Different Alex.
And she directed me to this woman, Dr. Anna Wilkinson, who runs the Cold-Blooded Cognition Lab in Lincoln, England. And yeah, she was absolutely perfect and was like, I'd be more than happy to tell you, everything I know about turtle memory and what it's aware of and, what it's experiencing and what its ideal conditions are. So I think from there, we were confident that we could put something together.
But we did initially struggle with how to sort of end the story, because there wasn't a natural, everything that happens in the film, we kind of make happen, which nothing would have happened with the turtle. So initially we were thinking maybe we can force my uncle to give the turtle away to some turtle sanctuary.
No.
And he
posters and put them on the telephone poles, needy turtle looking for a new home.
He was very reluctant.
It was a little cruel, so we took a different route.
Yeah, we knew we needed to sort of manufacture in a way the kind of arc of the story.
Yeah.
But
in the same way we had.
It made it really fascinating because, to learn about, an animal's perception of the world and its happiness and its state of mind and its state of being and all, it added a brilliant depth to the film that I wasn't expecting, at all, because as soon as your film came on, I just had a smile on my face. I knew straight away that it was going to bring me joy. But to have that other scientific kind of research end of things, as an added bonus, it was really, really, I suppose, a really clever form of filmmaking to do that. So which, like you say, has kind of rounded off the documentary for you and made it a fuller piece. Because God, imagine putting up signs for Snowy to be taken away to a happier place.
We were like, you can visit him, it'll be okay, it's for the better of Snowy and the film, you have to do this. Yeah, we abandoned that.
Yes, and I suppose an interesting thought crossed my mind when I was watching it as well, which was how it was to film your family. Some people might say, oh, sure, that's easy peasy, you know everybody, or, I'm sure it came with its challenges and advantages. And I suppose your own working relationship within that as well. How did all that pan out?
So I'd say...
I think we really benefited from Alex being very close, and while me knowing them intimately, didn't have the same hesitations around sort of making this sort of I gotcha film. Alex was very hesitant and not wanting to frame Larry as the bad guy and then show his family the film and everyone be like, you're making us look terrible. And I was like, no. Ask the hard questions. It's fine. The stakes are low. Ultimately, this film is about a turtle. So I'm just, Yeah,
I was just worried that it would get back, from my grandma or my mom that I'm, hassling my family.
Shaming the
family. But definitely the positive was sleeping where you're filming. We could just wake up and my uncle would feed us. They were gracious and, are you hungry? Are you tired? What do you need?
Yeah. I mean, so much about filming a documentary is this constant negotiation between the filmmaker and the subject, and kind of justifying continuing to film and why you're filming and, how you need this one more scene. So there was a big benefit in it being with family, and they were kind of constantly like, we have no idea what you're doing. No one's going to watch this, but we love you and stay as long as you want. So that the film certainly benefited from that relationship.
Little did they realize it would make it to Sundance and everything and be on a world tour at the time.
We still think that might have been a mistake that Sundance couldn't take back, but yeah, that was
but it's a wonderful piece of filmmaking because not only is it educational, but it actually I developed a love for turtles that I never had, so if anything, like it's highlighting the plight of the turtle, and particularly ones that are left in basements for that amount of time. But when he's actually set free, that scene is so beautiful, like in the grass, like he's outside and you're kind of like, go Snowy, go, move those legs, So and another thing that came across in the film for me was that there was great humor in it, and there was great love and connection within the family itself. I assume there were times where, you were just having a great laugh, and that you may have had to reshoot things or.
Yeah, Alex is notorious for whenever we're filming together, he can't keep it together. If there's even like a really subtle joke or he's a little tired, plus something funny happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's disastrous. And I think, the film certainly benefited from it, but it also led to a lot of laughing. I'm from New Jersey. Alex grew up in New York. Alex's uncle, they're all from New Jersey. So there's very much a shared sense of humor. Everybody found the whole premise of the film ridiculous.
There's one point where we're filming the turtle just waiting to eat the worm. 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And then we just all start cracking up and we can't recover for, 5 minutes. We're like gasping for air.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Well, it is particularly funny, that scene. I'm thinking of it now. It is very, very funny. That's when you're giving him all the support as well. You go on, Snowy, you can hunt, you can do this. But how is he now? Actually, how is Snowy doing now? Is he still good?
Living large.
He's thriving. We do little check-ins for like, are you taking him in the yard? Is his heat lamp light bulb working?
Well, I think a lot of the film we make happen. We go to England, we force my uncle, but I think the emotional journey that my uncle and my family goes on is real, and maybe that's why a lot of the film lands so well. He really did have this sort of transformation where you reconsider this animal. Yes, that you kind of, it becomes a routine and you're not able to kind of see it with new eyes.
Yeah, there's certainly this theme that extends beyond just a relationship between a human and a pet, which is, without all of the information of somebody's quality of life, you can think that what you're providing is sufficient. And it isn't at all. It's not even close. So Larry certainly isn't the bad guy, but prior to him receiving all of this information, he kind of thought what he was doing was sufficient.
And I think the line wasn't it something like just because something is surviving doesn't mean it's happy or exactly. something along that theme. And no, Larry doesn't come off as a baddie at all. It's actually quite endearing to see him like connect with Snowy, and then Snowy recognizes him. It's just bring a tear to your eye, the whole thing. Like really. So in that regard, like that's what I think what I was trying to say with the connection between the films. It's like Tom, for you and your film as well, it's about connection, and like the Hamja actually like unknowingly like builds this like coalition of shy people, and it becomes a global movement. But it's like a similar thing, like it came from one kernel of an idea, you know what I mean? One kernel of idea that spreads, and everyone becomes a team and collaborates for the greater good. And in Snowy's case, that definitely made his life better. And the film itself will highly educate people on how animals think. And for your film, Tom, I found it like fascinating because so many introverts that I would know. I think we all have we're all slightly introverted, in our own little ways. But for him to like actually approach this like a solid movement, like the suffragettes, or he mentions that in the film, and I can actually see it becoming a thing. Like, well, it is a thing. I just wasn't aware of it. So in that regard, like, how do you feel about your film actually possibly and contributing to what could even become a bigger global movement?
I mean, Hamja himself calls himself the commander-in-chief of the introvert resistance and says he's on a never-ending world tour to overthrow extrovert supremacy. And in a way, he is, like, he's traveling the world. His connection with the art world means that his work is being seen in, you know, countries all over the world. He's being invited to exhibit work inspired by his book. And one of the exhibitions he did a couple of years ago in Slovenia was it was effectively a vote where you could vote, where citizens of the local area could vote whether to leave their city or become part of Aspergistan and sort of split away from it. So it was a referendum based around the Brexit campaign, kind of inspired by a lot of the political messaging and propaganda that was going on at the time in this country. He'd just sort of taken that and applied it to his idea of Aspergistan. So, and that was really successful, and he was awarded the grand prize at that particular exhibition in Ljubljana, Slovenia. So he is sort of touring and inspiring people about his work all over the world. And I think no matter where you identify on the scale of introversion to extroversion, and I do think it's a little more complicated than, you know, one or the other. I certainly need time away from things and from the busyness of life, and can sort of identify in both camps. But it certainly made me think differently about, like, the way society is structured. Like, it is definitely geared towards people that are comfortable in social situations and feel comfortable standing and speaking to you know, your class or a crowd. So yeah, it makes you rethink just about how things, like, might be different, and how people that identify as introverts, shy or quiet, like how we might include these people into conversations within society, and it applies to so many different areas of being. So I think in that sense, anyone can learn something from the film and the work he's doing, and by taking it to the extremes of overthrowing the idea of extrovert supremacy and all of this language he's using, obviously playfully, but by taking it to the extreme, I think it highlights it in a fun, like, interesting, creative way.
Absolutely, and that's what I think about both of your films, is that they not only do they entertain, but they educate. And I think that is, like, the marker of a good, as you say, non-fiction or documentary film, is that it does both. You know, it entertains, it educates, and it inspires. It inspires change of some sort. You know, like, I definitely have learned way more about animals' perceptions, or what you're not call them mammals, wasn't it? They said don't call the turtle a mammal or something, you know, like, or something about that. And then I've learned way more about, like, the plight of an introvert, and just all that stuff, and the extra layer in your film, Tom, about that extradition case. Like, so I suppose on that note, what I'd like to ask all of you is, what was it initially in your lives that led you down the path of filmmaking, or was it photography? Was it what actually, and how did you end up in documentary filmmaking? What inspired you to get involved in that? I'll ask you, Alex and Kaitlyn.
I feel like I completely identify with what you just said, Tom, in terms of being kind of maybe in the middle. So there's definitely situations, I'd say maybe I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, and having a camera in your hand gives you an excuse to be anywhere and talk to anybody, and it kind of gives you a reason to be in a certain situation. And I think I always dreamt as a kid or a younger me to explore the world, see people, be in situations that I never thought I could be in or would be in, or never had a reason to. And just having a reason to be there. So even if you're not taking photos, if your camera's on your shoulder, or if you're holding your camera and you're talking to somebody, it opens up the world to you for introverts.
I grew up. I grew up at sort of the family company, which is forensic engineering. So if something goes wrong, if a gas plant explodes and a bunch of people are injured, they kind of go in and figure out what happened from kind of a techie perspective and who is at fault. So I kind of grew up with all of these cautionary tales being told to me about carnival rides breaking down and people tripping downstairs. And my dad is a very overprotective father as a result of this, but had a real knack for storytelling because of all of these ridiculous cases that came into the company. So I think I was kind of raised with this sort of storytelling lens in the way that we saw the world. So I think it was telling stories and being very drawn to stories was something that was that I grew up with, but it took a while to sort of realize that that's something that could be done as a profession.
Yes, and isn't it brilliant when you actually realize that, and then like the world is your oyster then when it comes to like subject matter. It's never ending. If you had the time as a filmmaker to make all of the ideas that pop into your head as a documentary filmmaker, you know, God. Well, anyway, we do it all. We still do that type of thing. We still squeeze in as many film and hours as we can into a documentary. And Tom, I'd like to ask you the same question then. How was it that you landed in the filmmaking and documentary arena?
I definitely relate a lot to what Alex said, and I feel exactly the same. It's a real privilege to be able to, travel and meet interesting people and sort of follow stories that you might not otherwise get access to or might not otherwise have the confidence to like approach. I think the first thing for me, like my uncle is a cameraman, and when I was young, I was just constantly fascinated by all of the awesome stuff he was doing. I think I must have been about 8 or 9 years old, and in the course of one summer, every time I saw him, he just filmed Oasis at Nebworth, this one of the most famous like concerts of all time. I was a huge Oasis fan, and then he filmed Jeff Buckley at one point, and then this other time he said he'd just been swimming with sharks, and I was just thinking, what the hell is this job? Like, how? I just thought he was, some sort of like a superhero. But I didn't really figure out what he did for another 15 years until I had until I was looking for work in London during the recession. There was nothing really to do. I started assisting him on projects, and then gradually discovered what all of this industry was about. And capturing live music is where I began sort of working in production and in film, and filming live performances is something I still really enjoy. And I just have sort of grown a greater interest in finding out more about artists and their processes. I find it fascinating chatting to people about why they've made certain pieces of art or music and what inspired them.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good. And so Alex. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing to how I got into it, because Tom, what you said reminded me. There's this amazing store in New York called B&H, and my friend and I, when we were 9 or 10 years old, on our free time, we would go there and just like look at the glass and look at the cameras, and it was this magical land. So it's just something about also the technology and filmmaking having this sort of magical quality of like, wow, there are all these buttons and there are all these different things to push. I remember that from a young age too.
Yes, and then I suppose in the times we're living in now, it's like, I suppose we're blessed insofar as it's so much easier now to have a camera in your hand, like a DSLR or even or whatever it is to start shooting. I mean, because obviously years ago it was a very different ball game when it was all like film and all that type of stuff. So I do think like it's been revolutionary, like what has happened in the digital age, that it's given like people like who may not have ever picked up a camera in their life the ability to go out and film something and tell a story or make a documentary. So I'm glad for this time that we're living in, for sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the podcast for our listeners?
Yeah, maybe you think you have to travel to some far-flung places or the desert or diving with sharks, but if you, especially, maybe it was even the pandemic that kind of turned us onto this, but if you look closely and you look around your life, there's actually stories everywhere. And the fact that they're in your inner circle make them easier to tell. If you're starting out, or even if you're not, you kind of have more readily available access. So I think now our new approach is kind of looking out our front window, and it's like, hello, is there a story out there? And then it makes a greater connection to the place you live, but it also access is a little bit easier. You're not kind of fighting the uphill battle to just get in because you're already there.
Yeah. So your film was shot throughout then COVID, was it?
We finished. Our last shoot date was like right before the lockdown, and then we were editing throughout COVID.
Yeah, timing was really serendipitous. It ended right when it hit.
Yeah. We started COVID.
And then you were locked inside to edit, which is what happens anyway when you go into the editing vortex. So it kind of all worked out. Yeah. What about you, Tom? Actually, before we sign off, did you film yours throughout COVID, or was it before, or half and half, or?
It's kind of strange how it all came about, because I just finished editing actually when COVID hit. I think it was middle of March, wasn't it? And yeah, so I'd been in an edit suite with an editor, or just in isolation for quite a while. And the film is obviously about creating space to get away from all of the chaos of the city and the outside world, and then suddenly we were forced into it for whatever it's been, you know. So that was kind of a cruel irony, I suppose.
It was all your fault.
I don't know if it was the sort of, you know, utopian introvert idea that Hamza had thought about, and it made me think a lot deeper about the themes of the film actually when the pandemic began. And I think I'm still kind of reflecting on those ideas now. So I don't know if like forced isolation is necessarily a healthy way forward for an introvert or an extrovert, but I think it certainly has changed the meaning of some of the ideas within the film. But I love what you guys are saying about looking for stories closer to home, and I've certainly learned a lot of that myself during this time, and I'd say that's brilliant advice that I myself am also taking to at the moment.
So on that lovely note, we can end the podcast here, and I suppose I'd just like to ask one more question. Is this your first time to screen a film in Ireland? And how are you feeling about your film being screened at Still Voices?
Oh, we're so excited. This is our first time screening in Ireland. And thank you so much to Still Voices Short Film Festival for having us. We don't know if we can make it there yet, but we'll be there in spirit, and we're sending good turtle.
It's incredibly exciting to know that the film is being filmed so far from home.
Brilliant. And Tom?
Really excited to have Shy Radicals screen in Ireland at Still Voices. It will be the first time I've had a film screen in Ireland, which is really meaningful. I have family that live nearby, so hopefully we'll be able to come over and visit them and also check out the festival. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your time today and your insights into your filmmaking process and your inspirations and everything beyond. And congratulations again on your film being selected for Still Voices. So thank you to Tom Dream, whose film is Shy Radicals. We have Alexander and Kaitlyn, whose film is Snowy, and wish you best of luck in all of your future endeavours in the documentary field, and look forward to seeing your future work. Okay.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Cheers, guys.
No worries.
Thanks so much for having us.
Lovely to meet you all.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. The Still Voices Short Film Festival takes place from the 4th to the 7th of November. Explore the full programme and book tickets at stillvoicesfilmfestival.com. And of course, be sure to check out filmireland.net.